Good morning, Danielle.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am magnificent. Magnificently wonderful.
Glad to hear it.
Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it's a great weekend.
Yeah? What made it so great?
Just hanging out with friends and talking to my sister yesterday. It's a great weekend.
That's good. Well, welcome everybody to What the Hell is Water. We are live at yet another recording venue here. And I think this makes maybe like 5. We did a boat, did a hotel.
Oh yeah, I forgot that there were 2 different locations within your disc golf trip.
Yeah, and we did another hotel. Maybe it is 4. Maybe it's 5.
Mm-hmm.
If we count Ryder, I mean, Ryder's been a couple places too. So yeah, welcome to What the Hell is Water, episode 73. And thanks for joining us today. It is January 17th, 2022. Good job.
And happy Martin Luther King Day.
Yes, Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Junior. Forget that.
I know. MLK Day. MLKJ is a little harder off the tongue, you know, just extra syllable.
MLKJ Day. Seems fine to me.
Yeah. Well, on Friday, we had a episode with me and Ryder, and we dove into a little bit about Ryder's history. And although we had done it a couple of times in smaller chunks and over the episodes, we thought by episode 73, it might be a good time to get a bigger look into Ryder, how he got to where he is today, what all he's doing, the mix of podcasting and art and philosophy and reading and all the types of things. And also we ended up kind of talking about what the heck are you doing here on the show, Ryder, and why are you spending all this time? Especially because, spoiler alert, we ain't paying. So we found out a little bit more from Ryder about why he's on the show, and what the show is about and what he's trying to get out of it. So here we are with you, Danielle. We get to find out a little bit about where you are. But 1 second, let me get our dog to stop moving around.
Come lay down.
Lincoln, you're a loud walker. Get over here.
Sit.
So, Danielle, when we start looking at your... well, actually, before we get into today's episode, why don't we run our intro?
Okay.
Helpful for life. So here we are. So Danielle, as we were saying, when we get into your professional history, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got here today? So you went to college, got a psychology degree. Then I guess first off, why did you get a psychology degree?
Well, I thought I wanted to be a counselor, and then ultimately decided that I was probably too sensitive to be a counselor. And also at A&M, they have what's called a terminal PhD program where you couldn't just get a master's. You have to get the full PhD, and then I didn't want to try and like graduate early and go somewhere else for the master's because anyways. So yeah, and then I tried out for Texas A&M has a crisis helpline for, I guess, students to call with like any issue, but they do deal with like suicide calls. And so that was a pretty draining week of training for that. And then I didn't even make it onto the team after that week of training. And then I had like a total meltdown. And I was like, what am I doing with getting a psychology degree when I'm clearly too sensitive to be a counselor? Which I don't know. I might still become a counselor someday. But then, yeah, I was like, well, what can I do with a bachelor's in psychology? And HR was an option. And I also had a friend who was doing HR at the time. So we joined the student human resources management group.
Society.
Society.
Human Resource Management.
I never remember what acronyms mean, but SHRM was what we called it. And decided, to look for jobs in HR. And so throughout the last semester of college, got to like see different people come in and talk to SHRM. And I thought that a part of recruiting that I might like, or a part of HR that I might like, was recruiting. Because it's like helping people find their dream jobs. And if I can't decide what I want to do for my job, then clearly I should help other people figure out what they want to do with theirs. Because if you can't do, teach. So I was going to be a recruiter and help people find their dream jobs. And then I became a recruiter for an IT staffing company and realized not so much a fan of the IT staffing kind of recruiting. I think that was a long roundabout way of getting from psychology to my first job out of college, but
No.
was that the question?
No, that's very good. That's exactly what I was asking.
Oh.
So you were in college, you got a bachelor's in psychology. Did you get a business minor as well?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Once I decided to not be going towards the master's degree route and switch to the business HR route, I got, I called it a minor in business administration with a focus on human resources, because I think I took like one human resources class that didn't apply to the major
Of
or
the
minor
5
or
classes
whatever.
you needed
Yeah.
for the minor.
Yeah.
You chose my minor has a focus.
Whatever.
Hey, marketing.
I know. I write my resume, right? I can put whatever on there I want,
Yeah, there you go.
as long as I can back it up.
Amen. And she can back it up, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you. So you did the bachelor's in psychology with a minor in math or not math.
Yeah,
Business.
who gets a math minor?
Yeah, I know, right? And I wanted to point out, you said after, or one of the things that was cool, I remember when you did that in college, was volunteering for the crisis helpline. You know, I thought that was a great way for you to test out what it might be like to do a little bit of counseling while you were still in school. And it's not exactly an internship, but in kind of was like sticking your toes in the water. I also wanted to point out that just because, you know, a crisis helpline may be too intense for you or some people, I would think that maybe just regular counseling, especially given different settings, may not be quite as intense.
Yeah.
But I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, well, and I've told myself that many times since, that like counseling a person in person on a regular basis, like on a weekly basis, where you're not just getting the frantic phone call when they're like, oh, who can I call? The crisis helpline. This is a crisis. Like, obviously, you're going to be getting a different kind of counseling experience doing a crisis helpline versus counseling. So I've told myself that. And, you know, that's why it's not totally off the table at some point in my life. But
yeah. So you did the counseling, and then, you know, that was one of the things that helped you decide that, okay, maybe between that and the job prospects, with it only being a bachelor's degree instead of the master's, which you thought you might be able to get, it kind of shifted what your target was for a career. But if I recall correctly, having a little bit of inside knowledge, there was more than one factor when you're trying to choose what you were going to do for your life. I mean, how high up on your priority list was choosing a job back then? Did you have other things that you were thinking about with your life?
Oh, yeah. Well, I wasn't really thinking I needed to pay much attention to what I chose for a job, because I'd probably only do it for like 3 or 4 years, and then I'd quit to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yes. And for those who've never heard it before, there's a joke where they say, hey, oh, what's she getting a degree in? And they say, oh, she's getting her MRS degree, which is a way of saying that girl is going to get a boyfriend in college to turn into a husband, and Mrs.
Yeah, but I didn't need that because I got a boyfriend in high school.
Oh, there you go. So you got your MRS degree early.
Yeah. So my college degree was my degree.
It was really your graduate degree.
And I'm using it every day because we all have psychology So I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. MRS degree.
So, okay, so you got into recruiting, and then when you got into this IT staffing, what was that like for you?
I mean, it was fine for a while because I'm very motivated by numbers, I guess, and like getting a good grade and people pleasing. And so in recruiting, it's very metrics based, and then you're literally incentivized by, well, at least my team was. We were structured by, we had like our base salary, and then we had bonuses. So every quarter we could earn. I think it started out maybe at 2 or 3,000, and then when you got your first promotion after you hit your first bonus, then it went up to like 3 or 4,000, and then after you hit like 8 more bonuses, or like you hit 11, or I don't know, there was some next number, and then it would go up to like you could possibly get $6,000 or $8,000 a quarter extra on top of your base salary. And so by the time I left that job, I think we looked at our like W-9s that year or whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, like I made as much with my
W2.
like whatever. Yeah, now they're W-9s. I made as much as Reed with his fancy schmancy, highly sought after recruited at Texas A&M in the fall, whereas I was still like, hire me in the spring. And I think I may have made more than you that last year. So I was like, dang. So that was the draw of recruiting, was you like, you hit your numbers and you're like, okay, I know if I hit this much, then I get this much bonus. And that's really fun. But then after a while where you start being held accountable for people, I think I talked about this in the quitting episode, but yeah, you just start to see like people become numbers, especially to upper management. And I was becoming like a jaded person, and I didn't want to keep going down that like route of crying every day on the way into work. So quit.
Right. So you quit the well, real quick before we go a little farther, I wanted to just quickly explain the recruiting, the way the recruiting works. And I'm going to switch over to my, two of those. On screen now, for those who are audio only, we're just doing a quick little illustration here. And just so you know, this new mic that we have picks up everything you touch on the table, so.
Whoa.
We'll have to mess with some settings later. Got a new mic over the weekend. So when it comes to the recruiting jobs, at least for the style that you were working, basically a company would hire your company and say, hey, you can see your screen here. We'll pay you $100 an hour for this person's job. Right? And so that's this bar up here. Then you basically would try and hire somebody for basically whatever, we'll say X, right? But let's say they end up signing for $60 an hour.
Yeah.
So that means that your company would make that difference right there, right? 100 minus 60, which would equal $40 an hour.
Yeah. And then there's some percentage of like our overhead for employing the contractors that was subtracted out of that. And then, yeah, we had like our gross margin.
Right. And then as a recruiter, you got some percentage of that, right?
Well, some teams did. My team didn't.
Okay.
But yeah, the commissioned recruiters got a percentage of the literal money that their contractors were making our company.
Gotcha. So let's say in this example here.
So maybe it was like it would have been, say, around 3% of
the overall, or the spread?
Yeah.
The spread.
I think the spread.
Okay, so basically this person would then be making $1.20 an hour off that person, because it would be 3%.
Something like that.
And so
start.
And this commission basis, and we may have messed up the numbers,
yeah,
but we'll just say 3% So that's that 40 times 3% equals $1.20 an hour. And so as a recruiter, your job was to keep getting more of these people, so you would be making the company more money and you would be making more spread. And
Yes.
that compensation structure was a little different than yours, but basically that's kind of how that compensation structure worked.
Yes.
And the point I wanted to bring that up is because that was a time for us where we realized, like, hey, yes, you can have a highly technical degree like electrical engineering and you can get this job that is, a good electrical engineering job. But you can also have a degree in psychology, which a lot of people laugh at and say, ha, what are you going to do with
liberal arts in general.
Liberal arts, yeah, bachelor's degree. And then, yeah, you made, if not more, roughly the same amount as I did in some of those early years, which also was a little frustrating to me because it's like, come on, these people are making as much as we are and our stuff is way harder. But the reason that is because it's closer to the money. And that's the thing about compensation structures. And when, like, salespeople, I mean, it's very easy to say, like, hey, we created this sale, we made this much revenue for the company. Can't you give us some percentage of that revenue? Whereas if an engineer, say, for example, oh, we did this technological improvement that enables you to build this satellite that costs $300 million, that you're able to have that entire contract now because of that. Well, guess what? Poor little engineer would get, lost their camera. Poor little engineer would get no extra compensation at all. And so that was like a little frustrating.
Yeah, poor little engineer.
Poor little engineer. Thank
Let's just rewind and replay that phrase. I don't feel bad for you at all, is what I'm saying.
I got the sarcasm. I was just letting it slide,
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, a little bit of a side tangent there, just because I wanted to point out that sometimes the closer you are to when the money is being made, the easier it can be to get a percentage of that money. And just a little life lesson. And hopefully that'll change as time goes on, but that seems to be the way it works a lot of times. So for those of you who are out there trying to decide what jobs to get as you're looking at money and things like that, just showing a couple other compensation structures. So back to you, though. You did this for a little while, and we talked in depth about all the reasons why you quit and whatnot in the quitting episode. But you ended up quitting recruiting. Then what did you do?
Then I did another recruiting job, quit that one. Then I worked a temp job for it was like an automotive parts company. I'm trying to remember. I think it was.
Wait, so you worked a temp job. Why did you work a temp job?
Because I knew that I wasn't going to be working it for very long, I guess. I was like, I was like interviewing multiple places and figuring out what I wanted, and I wasn't sure exactly how long it would take me to figure out what I wanted and find what I wanted. So I figured, like, why not go into a temp job where it was very clear from the beginning, like, I'm interviewing for other jobs, and I'm just here because y'all have said you're okay with, you need the help bad enough where you're willing to have someone come in, train them just for a couple weeks, and then, like, no, you're going to have to train someone else after that, basically. Right. Yeah.
You're basically like, hey, I know it's going to take me a little while. I might as well have something to do. Just.
Yeah. And I mean, I figured it was a way to try out something else. And it was also a temp job where it was in like an HR office. So I was thinking maybe if I didn't like the staffing recruiting for like contract roles, then maybe I could get to be a recruiter for an internal company. So like for that corporation itself, recruit to bring in people from their internal HR team. And that was this temp job, I think, was underneath the finance person or like the accounting office, but they worked in the same HR office as the recruiting team. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the reason I bring it up is because I don't know any stats or anything like that, but it doesn't seem like most people who get a typical white collar job, especially ones paying as well as yours were, end up getting a temp job, because I don't know, it just doesn't seem like that high percentage of a thing. But what did you think of having this temp job? Was that...
Well, I'd also had the temp job before I found the recruiting job whenever we first got to California. So I guess my technical first job out of college was that temp job.
There you go.
That I was working. And yeah, I forget, there was something to do with a interviewing snafu that happened while I was working that temp job. It's gone now. But yeah, so I'd worked a couple of temp jobs, and I just kind of saw them as like a low risk way to try something out and decide, nope, don't like that.
Yeah, so I guess, do you think it was worth doing those temp jobs? Did you get some value out of them?
Yeah, and I mean, I got some, I don't know, few hundred bucks while I was interviewing for other jobs and finding the job that became my next salary job. So, yeah. Cool.
So, yeah, for those of you at home, maybe you've never thought about a temp job, and maybe, I don't know if maybe some people think they're beneath them or something like that, but they're called temporary jobs for a reason.
Yeah, and you can kind of look at them like, oh, I'm going to go try out this company culture and meet some people, and like, yeah, I just kind of feel like there's not a whole lot to lose if you're in between jobs anyways, and you're upfront about it from the beginning that you're going to be interviewing and possibly needing to step out if you're on an hourly basis, and going into it with that arrangement, then I think it's kind of like win-win. So
yeah. So I guess what do you really have to lose? And the answer, in my opinion, is probably not much. Just a little bit of your time. Mm-hmm. And also, who knows where it might lead? You start going in that job and you're doing it, and maybe it ends up introducing you to a person, or maybe they have a job for you at that company that does something else. Or maybe it's just a way for you to do a little thing and get something. So, for example, I remember there was one thing you were doing, had something to do with filing or typing things in, mm-hmm. or whatnot. And they're like, oh, wow, you're really efficient at this. and so even little things like that you could mm-hmm. have as tasks. And also maybe it could be a resume builder for those of you who maybe want to either don't have that much on a resume or whatnot. You can say, look, I don't care what all my other experience is. Look, I went and did this job that the average person maybe wouldn't do, and here's how I did it well. And you can talk about some of your metrics associated with it and get some testimonials, or for people who say, hey, this person's a good worker, give them a chance, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Or you can just touch one person's life so much that they cry on your last day, even though you've only been there for 2 weeks.
Oh, was that what happened with one of your people?
Yeah, one of the accounting ladies cried on my last day, and then I was like, oh no, I feel really bad. Like, apparently the state of this office is just not doing so hot. But
so I don't think that one came up on the quitting episode.
Probably not.
Danielle making people cry at every job she's been to.
Yeah. Maybe she quit not long after I left. Who knows?
We'll never know.
Yeah.
Unless you're out there, lady. Come let us know. So you did the temp job. And was that your last paid thing before being done, or you ended up getting the other?
No. So then when I quit that temp job because I got a job as an executive assistant to the CEO of a startup company. And that was the job where I actually cried in the interview, not when I was quitting.
So the question when Danielle is coming to your company, it's not
if
is there going to be crying?
It's when.
It's not going to be
where.
And it also may be who.
Around who, yeah. In what professional scenario am I going to shed some tears?
And who else will be involved as participants? You never know.
Yeah. So in this one, it was like, I was beaten down by recruiting. I was like having a quarter life crisis, and went into this interview, and I think her title was the controller, because she was like HR and accounting because it was a small startup, like less than 30 people when I joined. So, and she was asking me some questions about like, oh, why do you want to leave recruiting? And I think I was just talking about how like, oh, I'm so disillusioned with corporate America, and I don't know, like and then she was like, and why are you getting emotional right now? Like, because I was starting to cry, and I was like, oh, just because like this is me, and I'm not gonna try and hide it anymore, and I just want a job where I can feel like I don't have to like make as much money as I was making when I was recruiting. I just want to know that like I'm more than a trained monkey who can do this job, and that like me being the one doing the job makes a difference. I don't know. I can't remember how I said it, but basically wanted to find more personal fulfillment in a role. And then she was like, okay, well, come meet the CEO. And then that was the coolest moment, because when I heard her go around the corner and she knocked on his door, when she opened it, I was like, I heard her say, I think we found her. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh, then I started crying all over again. It was great. That was my favorite job.
Nice. Yeah, well, that was a fun one for sure. And that was roughly 40, 50 people.
By the time I left, yeah, was sort of 40.
And how many did you say when you started?
20 something.
Yeah,
so like I got to like work on designing the onboarding process and like writing out the HR procedures, because like there was like no one had done that before. And I'm like, ooh, my templates for like a first day email. And then actually my best friend that I made in California probably came from that company. And like, well, my two best friends were, one's like my writing accountability partner now. And then the other girl was the first girl that I hired at the company.
Oh,
and she
funny.
was like, yeah, I thought you were like way older or like a more established like HR person from your like first day emails. And I showed up on my first day and she was like, oh, this is Danielle. And I was like, oh, well, I'll take that as a compliment, seeing as people still think I look 17 or 16 since we got carded at an R-rated movie after I worked at that company.
Oh, that was funny. I do remember that.
Yeah, we show up for a date night, and yeah.
Nothing like getting carded.
Carded for an R-rated movie as a 28-year-old.
Does that say more about us or about that person who works at the movie theater? I don't know. But yeah, no, that is I had to say yeah, no, we had to channel our inner writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
No, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. So with that job, I don't remember exactly what was going through our heads together at that time. When you first joined this company was 2017. So that was potentially months before I was going to be quitting. Because I quit in July of 2017. So would you join in like March-ish sometime?
Yep, March. Yeah. It was like, actually I think March 1st was my first day. It was a Wednesday.
So I forget, if you and I had talked at all at that point about the possibility of the startup. I imagine we had. I think we had been talking about it for a while.
Yeah, I think so. But then that was when you were planning your South America trip, and you'd at least decided to stay at Boeing through the South America trip. Yeah.
So I guess for you, did you have any thoughts going through your mind about going to work for a startup before we potentially had a startup of our own?
Yeah. Well, I thought it would be cool to kind of see like, well, I'd done the IT staffing, like more corporate, like business casual in the office kind of culture. And so I wanted to see like what a startup culture was like. And it was definitely more, I would say, like, I don't know if like hectic isn't the right term, because it's just a different kind of, but like it was an environment where you could embrace the chaos kind of thing. Like it was expected that it was going to be chaotic because everyone is doing like 5 different jobs. So it was just kind of like everyone's job is chaotic, but we're just running with it. And like it's expected to have snafus, and like we're just gonna problem solve and like appreciate the 4 out of 5 jobs that someone is doing well versus like, you know, everyone's gonna have those like mistakes that fall through the cracks. So I think I really liked working there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly a little different than working at a company that's been a little more established for a while. And to reference an episode we had a while back with Hunter Hodnett, where we talked about briefly the various stages of funding. There's like pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, IPO, things like that. I believe this company had raised a Series A.
Yes.
By the time you got hired, and then by the time you left, I think they maybe even gone to a B round.
We were, I think we were talking with investors around, I was like arranging meetings with investors. That was one of my duties, and like
you said duty.
Duties. I'm a child in Chandler from Friends. Always.
So it was kind of cool to see, you know, so we're about to do this startup thing, and we saw what it was like a little, and they had 20 employees, and they had to think about funding and
competitor analysis, and but getting to see the like presentation decks, as they were called. And it was, I feel like I got to witness and create a whole lot within that role. So, because I was a travel agent. I was this onboarding specialist, recruiter, interview coordinator, like every part of the hiring process I was involved in. And like employee engagement once they were on site, being the happy hour advocate. Like everyone thanked me the most for doing that job whenever I was like, hey guys, like, so are we walking over to this bar on Friday at 3? Like, is this what we're doing? And, you know, just like planting those seeds in everyone's mind. And like all the C-levels were like, thank you so much, Danielle, for like arranging these happy hours. And I'm like, I can't believe you're thanking me for this. Like, this is something I would be doing in spite of if you wanted me to or not, probably. So just keep trying to leave for happy hour earlier and earlier on Fridays.
And they'll keep thanking you.
Yeah.
So for those who aren't aware, when she says C-level, she means like the executive. So like CEO, chief
marketing officer,
chief marketing officer,
chief product officer,
chief operating officer. So anytime you hear CEO, CMO, and a three-letter acronym starting with C, that's referencing the C-suite is another name, or the C-level.
Yes.
So yeah, for those of you who are at home wondering, like, or didn't pick up on that, one of the things Danielle's did is she kind of had a little bit of a social lead type of role for the team. And so she helped plan some of these events where they would go out to a bar, go out to dinner, or maybe like the annual events and things like that.
So like the holiday party, and then if there was like an all hands meeting that the CEO would call to like make some new announcement, or just give a status update on like the company. We tried to do an all hands meeting at least once a quarter, if not once a month. And then we would either bring in food or go out for happy hour right after that. So like just planning any sort of social events, and then game nights that we had in office, and like trying out new products of ours that were coming out, and like helping our QA, the quality team, do their testing some nights. We had like a game night that was also like helping the quality team. So yeah, just a lot of different things, and like also working on the organization structure of the company, and like the org chart was updating that whenever we got a new person, or we're hiring for a new position, going ahead and figuring out where they would go on the org chart and updating that. Like, I feel like I got to see a lot more sides of business than I had before.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because you got to see a little bit behind the scenes of, okay, hey, do we bring on one more higher level person at this higher salary? Or maybe do we bring in multiple people at the lower salary and see what kind of impact that might have? And, and maybe all of those weren't the best decisions. And some of those are people, some of those are just, oh, maybe we should have done that positionally differently. So I remember just finding it interesting. It was almost like a little bit of a reality TV show, because it's like you see the company happening and you get to see, hey, the revenue is doing great or it's not. And I don't know, it just feels a little different when it's at that scale versus, when I'm working for Boeing, which does, I don't know, $100 billion in revenue or whatever crazy it is. It's, and the company or the location I was at does about 1 billion a year. So it's like, this is massive thing, which I was one of 140,000 employees, something like that. And our business unit, which still deals with pretty big numbers. I mean, like I said, a satellite was like $300 million or something like that. So when you're dealing with $300 million things and you still feel like that's not very big, it kind of gives you an idea of the scale. But that was cool to see with your company, 20 employees, millions of dollars of revenue, and getting to see the org charts and things like that. It was also interesting because the role that I was in at the time was essentially working as a chief of staff type of person for a vice president of all engineering for multiple Boeing business units. So he had 10,000 engineers underneath him. And so I got to see a little bit of this business world as well. So you saw it in the startup side. I saw it in the big corporate side, and I got to see a little bit of, okay, we have this big unit called, Mother Boeing, as some people will call it. And if Mother Boeing needs something and it says down to its lower divisions, hey, I need you to jump, and then it's like, oh, well, how high do I jump? What color does my jump need to be? What forms do I need to fill out as I'm jumping? Seeing a little bit about how that played out. And some of the tension that was there, and some of the times where it's like, hey, actually, it would be better for that business unit if they didn't jump. And seeing how some of those discussions go or went was interesting. So I think it's kind of cool that, and I don't know, maybe a little coincidental at that stage of our lives, we were both in similar roles in that way. I didn't know if I really thought about that before. But yeah, so that was kind of cool. So you did that for a little while, and so you started out in psychology, then you ended up getting into recruiting. Oh, I didn't want to forget about your temp jobs. You had a couple temp jobs in there doing some various things.
I don't even remember what the first temp job was, actually. Right. I'm pretty sure it was some other assistant in an HR department of some sort.
And when we said temp jobs, between all of them, it's like a total of 3 weeks or something, 4 weeks. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So you did the temp jobs. You did the recruiting, then you got into this job, which was executive assistant turned also office manager, travel coordinator, kind of a handful of different hats, and social chair wearer. He didn't really wear the chair. That was one of the things I wanted to tell people at home is, even if you have no desire to plan or even really go to these events, it can definitely be a way to get yourself a leg up or get you some FaceTime with people that you wouldn't maybe otherwise, right? And that's the beauty of doing that is, regardless of if it's a big old company or a small company, like maybe you wouldn't be hanging out with that person or talking with that executive or brushing shoulders with that manager if you weren't doing those things. And I remember when I was at Boeing participating in, I never could think of a better term for them than like extracurricular things. Because I don't know that
like organizations.
Yeah, well, so at Boeing, I was involved in organizations, but there are other things too. Like, for example, there's a gym at Boeing, and it's like if you go to the gym, and you like, for example, I went and played basketball, and if you're playing basketball, it's like, well, there's an executive there, there's a manager there, there's someone who's like same level as me over there. Like, right. It's this mixing pool. It's another way to engage with people at the company without being in the office. And oh, by the way, it helps that you're not all necessarily in your nice clothes and you're just kind of hanging out like people. So that's cool. Another cool thing about doing things like that or getting involved in other ways, like I mentioned, whether it be sports or these other organizations that can be for training or whatnot, is you can do some of those things. So I'd want to make sure to mention that for those of you at home, especially if you're trying to, learn more about the company, learn more about people, maybe get into different positions. That can be one way for you to do all of those things. And that's the thing about networking is you never know when one person might just be the one who opens the door for you to change your life. And it's like, oh, hey, like, I don't know that you're trying to, let me say that again. I know you're trying to accomplish ABC, and I can't personally help you with that ABC, but I know this person, or they're my neighbor, or whatever. And like, that's how those discussions start happening, is you just are spending time with people, telling them what you want to do, and then trying to manifest it, which is a term that you certainly ramped up and using a lot more over the last couple years. So you did the recruiting thing, then long story shorter, we got into an RV. Why don't you tell us how you quit or didn't quit or whatever happened as we were moving into the RV.
Yeah, so
that water.
It was 2018 spring when we decided that we wanted to do the RV. And so I told the CEO, and he was like, okay, well, I really want to have like an on-site executive assistant. So I was like, oh yeah, like I'll help recruit for my replacement, and trained her. My last day was her first day. And but my last week, whenever we'd gone to Hawaii, my second to last week, I was out of the office and then came back to the office on Tuesday before my last day was Friday. And the marketing team talked to me about writing for the blog after I left, because they were like, you can do that remotely from the road, do like 1 to 3 posts per month, depending on like how busy you are and like how much you're traveling or what you think your schedule will be like. And I was like, oh, that's pretty perfect. Like, keep involved with this company that I really enjoyed working for. And then like I originally wanted to stay the executive assistant from the road if I could have. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll write for the company blog. And I did that. So we left in June 2018. And then I think it was like a year and 3 months or 4 months until July of 2019 was when I quit writing for the company blog to focus on writing my own blog.
Wait, so what year was that you said you started to write your own blog?
2019.
And how many blogs at that point, though, had you already started?
Probably like 6.
Okay, so it wasn't your first blog that you'd ever written.
No.
But that was when you decided to try shifting towards writing more as a business, or what do you mean when you...
Yeah, like saying I'm a writer as my vocation, as I want to call it. Ideally, like the reason why we're trying to work for ourselves and start our own online businesses is so that we don't have to work for anyone else ever again. And and if I'm going to choose what to call what I do, I think vocation sounds like vacation. So that's
just one letter off, huh?
Yeah.
I like it. So you worked for this company for a while. You were smart and provided them booze and made them happy. And then when you're trying to leave, they're like, no, don't leave, Danielle.
Basically.
And then they said, okay, you could stay on and do some of the social media stuff, do this little bit of writing. So it was cool because you got to basically... that's kind of how a lot of your jobs went. You worked and did the thing at the job, and then you said, hey, as I figure out more about this, like I decide I want to work a little bit more on this role, and let's shift towards doing that. And in one of the cases with the earlier recruiting job, that didn't happen, and gave him the chance and gave him the chance. You're like, okay, I'm out of here, and you ended up quitting. And in this case, you were already kind of like, hey, I could do this or not. It's up to you. And at first they're like, no, we're good. And then right as you're about to be out the door, they're like, wait, come back, Danielle. You give us good tequila.
Well, and they said, so a part of my job as the executive assistant slash administrative assistant to the whole office was like sending out the more like HR announcement type emails. But I would try and do like a song lyric that I changed one word of as the subject line or something. And so the marketing team, I think someone on the marketing team who wasn't actually still there whenever they asked me to write for the blog, but originally she'd said like, Danielle, I never read like company-wide emails. I never read like HR type announcement emails. She's like, your emails are the only emails I read all the way through. And I was like, oh, like that's a great compliment. And so yeah, I think that was probably my boring HR emails that I made interesting so that people would read them and learn the information that we were trying to send out was why I was brought on to write for the blog.
Which I think is a great intro and also a great reason for us to plug some emails of our own today.
Oh, yes.
So for those of you who have not already heard about it, Danielle actually has a 30-day journal challenge that you guys can take completely free for now. So you better jump on it while you still can. And you can go to DanielleMGarcia.com. And up at the top, it'll say something like...
Join my free journal challenge.
Join my free journal challenge.
In the top menu bar.
And we'll put that link in the chat as well. And you can receive some of these emails and get some of them to prompt you to start journaling. What is this journal challenge about?
Yeah, really, it's just we're going to explore some different styles of journaling, sprinkled in with some just prompts for self-reflection. And yeah.
Yeah. And
decide then what parts of journaling you want to keep and do for yourself, or maybe you find out it's not for you, but you tried it.
Yeah. And some other emails that Danielle helps write are a lot of the ones that come from Helpful for Life. So if you guys are not on our email list for that, you can go to helpfulforlife.com and in the top right, hit subscribe. And who knows exactly what emails we're going to end up sending out. We have not sent out very many. In the 4 years, we've sent out a couple. And so that's one thing that we're definitely going to get around to doing a little bit more of. But
yeah, I think both of our email lists could benefit from like a every other week wrap up of like, here's what we've been up to at the very least.
Yes.
Kind of like, oh, here's this part of our show. Like that, What the Hell is Water had a guest on today. Like we can definitely, I think those would be some good emails for us to start sending.
Yes. So especially as we do not have a team of 20-ish people yet. So this is one of the things of trying to decide where to spend the time and energy. And we definitely will be focusing a lot more on marketing now that we are 73 episodes in. It's probably a good time to tell people about some of the things we've been doing.
Yeah,
huh?
Well, and all of my horoscopes were saying like 2020, 2021, those were kind of like cocoon years for me. And then maybe the collective as a whole is feeling this energy as well. But 2022 is the year to start speaking our truth and putting what we've been doing out there and self-promoting finally, even though it's hard to talk about yourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's time to come out of the cocoon and say, I'm a little butterfly, yeah. Is that what you...
Buy our course, yeah.
So
basically.
I'm glad you mentioned horoscopes because I wanted to make sure to ask a little bit about the mystical side of things. So if there's things that have changed, your job, what you're doing as your hobby, your increase in the amount of writing that you've been doing. But another thing that you've kind of increased the amount of is your mysticalness. And when do you see as your first kind of exposure into the mystical lands?
Probably with starting to read tarot in 2019. The fall was
of man.
No.
Oh, the fall of the season. Okay.
Yes, the season. And I just started learning more about just all sorts of skills that are out there to develop. And a lot of like mystical blogs were what I started reading to help me learn tarot. I was looking up free resources online, and, inevitably there was also stuff about astrology whenever you're looking up stuff about tarot. And then I think that was where I first learned about the concept of following the moon cycles as a mindful goal setting practice where you evaluate your goals and habits once a month, because the moon is a visual reminder of like a new beginning or time passing. And so just, I guess, tarot kind of opened up the rabbit hole to all of the mystical practices that are out there. And basically it's just I feel like with a lot of things in life, it's just a different lens through which to view a lot of the things that I would be doing anyways for my life. So, yeah.
So what, if you said it, I might have missed it. What was the first thing that triggered you getting into tarot? No, I got that, but you said tarot was your gateway. What?
I just
like did you
had the idea one time to look up and be like, ooh, that'd be cool to start learning tarot. So I ordered a deck.
Nice. That's all it took one time. It was just like, hey, just might as well get into it, and then tried it out, and next thing you know, your hair is blue and you're making potions and turning people into fish.
No, it doesn't happen.
Oh, I thought you were a mermaid. So you got in 2019, you got your first tarot deck. You started to research it a little bit. You started to be like, hey, you know what? I don't know how much of the actual spiritual ghosts, all these things may be true. Some of them may be, some of them not. I don't know. But at the very least, it's a fun new way to look at the world. Would you agree with that kind of rough statement? And as you did that, that's when you started to tell me like, hey, there's these things called spells, and spells is just, saying things and being intentional and putting your intention into something. And then you said this thing called manifesting, and it's like, oh, well, it's like these routines you're doing anyways, like you could just call them a spell and then make it feel a little more mystical and fun. And it's like, well, why not?
Yeah, I would rather say I'm going to practice a spell for a sparkling shower versus, oh, I'm going to go scrub the tub.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So with the mystical side of things, so you did the tarot, and then what was kind of your growing into, I guess, trying out or looking into more things? When did you see that interest start to develop a little wider?
I don't know that it's different than just starting to explore. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess, let me ask a different way.
Yeah.
Within the last year, I feel like you started to talk to more people in this space and ask more questions and learn about more things. I feel like it's branched more outside of tarot. Was that just the last year, you think, or?
Yeah, I think with getting plugged in with some people in the spiritual community around where we live, and starting to do Kundalini yoga at the Groovy Coop, doing like intentional candle making workshops at the Mill House. Just, I guess, connecting with more spiritual and metaphysical minded people. And and then once I started following the moon cycle for my own goal setting, then it was like, oh, I was connected with someone at the Mill House who does full moon circles, where she does like sound healing and a sound bath for like a guided meditation with the full moons. And you just kind of start connecting with more and more people the more you start putting out there what you're interested in and seeking out what you're passionate about.
Well, based off of what you've told me, and I know because, I'm your husband, but that's kind of culminated into a new thing for you guys. What exactly was that?
So we're starting a blog called The Mystic Collective, and it's me and 5 other entrepreneurial women who have spiritual or metaphysical businesses, and we're all kind of experts in our own skill sets, if you will. And so we have a tarot reader and candle magic workshop teacher and a Kundalini yoga teacher. There's the owner of Native, which is a plant and crystal focused shop on the square, and Katie, the owner of Groovy Coop and Red Zeppelin on the square, and so like psychic abilities and the music world is like her thing. And then we have Beth, who's an herbalist and has like, she creates skincare products and scrubs and soaps and candles and just everything with intention, like just mindfulness, I guess. And like everyone is just so, I guess, willing to share their knowledge. And I feel like I'm kind of like the newbie of the group who's trying to, get this blog effort started where we'll share about each of our expertises.
Expertises.
Yes. I don't know if that's the plural. I'm supposed to be the word expert, but
Yeah. And where can people learn more about that if they want to?
At themysticcollective.com.
Nice. So we've dropped that link in the chat so people can learn a little bit more about that as well. So we got a little bit of the mystical, we got a little bit of the writing, but let's talk a little bit more about the writing real quick. So you did the recruiting stuff, you started to do some blog stuff on the side. I think by 18 or whatever you said, you probably had 4 or so different blogs that you had tried at that point. Definitely been journaling, diarizing on and off for most of your life. So in 2018, you said you're going to go a little more intentionally into the writing. Here we are a couple years later. Now, what does writing mean to you, and what does your focus on that look like now?
Well, I think it was November 2019 was the first time that I tried NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, which is started in like the late 90s or early 2000s. I'm gonna forget the name of the founder, but a group of people decided to write 50,000 words of fiction in the month of November. And because basically that is like the size of a small novel. So for a first draft, if you like edited and then added some more words, that's a very good start for a first draft of a novel, is 50,000 words. So
and real quick, for those who are audio only, the way that is spelled is the first couple of letters of each of those words. So National Novel Writing Month. Did I spell that right? Mm-hmm. So NaNoWriMo, NaNoWriMo. So go ahead. You were saying, so you did National Novel Writing Month.
Mm-hmm. I think I did maybe like 12 or 13,000 words, and that was when we were basically moving from the RV into an apartment. So that month got kind of derailed by our focus being shifted to moving. But then since then, I've always been writing my novel ideas into my journals and random notes on my phone. And so I have to go back and kind of collect all of these snippets and put them together, which I started doing last year. And so far I have 35,000 words towards my current first novel project. So
nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, who knows how many shorter scenes or snippets or whatnot you have written in various pieces.
Yes.
On your computer, on your journals, and all that kind of stuff. Every now and then Danielle will come up to me and she'll be like, "Hey, I just realized that." It's like, oh, I had that whole thing written out. I'd forgotten completely about. And it's like, yeah, well, you've been doing it for a while now. So
Yeah.
when you go back and you look at all the things you do, even if you just do a little bit every day or every week or every month, after time, you get the little things done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though there are plenty of times where it doesn't quite feel that way.
Yeah.
So let's talk briefly about that. What's it been like being your writer? Has it been all sunshine and roses, Danielle?
No, I guess I feel like a lot of the times I'm allowing myself to get distracted by other projects and, helping people with their course creation and doing workshops, teaching people how to make craft cocktails at the Mill House. And, just I like that I can dabble in a bunch of different projects and get a lot of different experience trying different things, but also it's dangerous for me when I'm like the shiny object person. So, but at least it's like, because whenever I am working on my novel, I am writing. It is recorded somewhere. So it's like there is progress. I just have to go back and collect it all.
Yeah, you got to go back and collect the progress. It's kind of, the analogy it makes me think of is you're kind of like Mario, or Sonic rather. You're going through the levels, you're collecting all the golden rings, but every now and then you hit a spike, and then your rings go everywhere, and then you got to go. Maybe you lose a couple of them, but then you go and collect all the ones you still can. You're like, no, come back.
Yeah, and so, some ideas just don't come back.
And they just don't come back. Those coins will never be the same. So you did a little bit of writing. You've gotten a little into the mystic thing. And one of the things that has changed a lot is structure in your life. So when we talk about the first job that you had, that wasn't the temp job, which was the recruiting job, that was probably about almost as highly structured as you can get. And you had to be at that job no later than 8 a.m. and you had to leave that job no earlier than 5 p.m. To the point where it was almost like a joke. If you were going to be a couple minutes late, you had to call in and say, oh, Dad, I'll be there in a second. I mean, boss, I'll be there at 8:02 today. Or you send out an email at 4:45. It's like, this is a wrap-up email sent before 5 p.m. What are you doing? So you have to get X number of calls a day. They had all of these, structures in place where you had to work a certain way at a certain time with certain metrics and things like that. And now you flip to the exact opposite, where you're the only one in charge of all of your structure. So that's been a little bit of a, 180 degrees different. How's that been for you, going from too much structure to maybe too little structure? What's that shift been like for you?
Well, that's been a whole process, and figuring out how to work on my own as a writer, what I want my writing daily ritual to look like, and like what metrics am I tracking for myself, what is the project or the focus that's most going to move the needle for what I'm trying to do. So yeah, those are just all decisions that now need to be made by me, myself, and I'm very willing to change decisions and say oh yeah, so I know I said that was my goal and that was my focus, but actually I'm going to focus on this next month, and here's why that's fine that I'm changing, blah, blah, blah. And you can talk yourself into anything. So I think it's, and also, it's working with accountability and how much can you truly be responsible for holding yourself personally accountable versus seeking external accountability. And, so I just joined a writers group that's going to be meeting in person every other week for the first time. So that should have some, we're going to, basically help each other where we're experiencing roadblocks in our writing projects, where if it was just me sitting at home by myself and I'm experiencing this hiccup or, I don't know, block, then I maybe would say oh, just shirk that to the side. But if you're with a group of people where they're coming back to you the next week and like, oh, hey, like, so you're writing this novel that you told us what it was going to be about. Like, how's that going? And, then like helping each other problem solve and tackle those obstacles that are easy to procrastinate when it's just you.
Right. No, and that's the thing that's been good. I mean, you had done a couple of writing groups remotely before,
Yes.
but it'll be nice to have
Started
one.
during the pandemic, like through libraries. But yeah, I'm excited to have something in person and smaller. There's like 6 of us. We're at the first meeting, the first Wednesday in January.
Less people to hide behind.
Yeah, that's true.
So hopefully you guys will help keep each other nice and accountable.
Yes.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I feel like you and I have learned the most, it's all of the ways to not do things, all of the ways that...
Well, not all the ways to not do things. There's infinite ways.
We explored many of the infinite ways to not do things. We also explored some of the things that worked well for us, some of the things that didn't work so well for us. And as we're trying to figure out what is the right amount of planning to do, what is the right amount of structure to add, from traveling around the US and Canada in an RV, what is the right amount of research to do before you go do a thing. And then now we try and find out this new balance for our life, and how much should you work on your writing thing? How much should you be working on helpful for life things? How much should you be doing things to make your life run, right? And it's something that, full disclosure, we definitely have struggled with in the past, right?
And still don't have figured out. But
still definitely don't have it all figured out.
probably won't ever.
Probably won't ever, but that's honestly, I think, some of what the strongest things for us are, is that we've now spent the better part of 4 years really diving into these things and learning a lot ourselves, and learning about all of the ways things could be done, wrong, or the traps you can fall into and things like that. And they used to bother me a lot, and I used to kind of be embarrassed or whatever about how long it's taken me to get here and for the company to get to this point. But I had a shift somewhere over the last year where I realized that that's actually some of the things that makes it the most valuable for us, is because now we've realized all of the ways things can go wrong. Not all of the ways, but a lot of the ways things can go wrong. And as we're teaching now, we can say like, hey, you're going to want to do this, and you're going to start slipping into this little trap over here. If you're anything like us, then this thing may happen. And here are some ways to get ahead of that and to avoid that. So by us doing that learning up front, we can help coach and teach people of ways that they can avoid those traps so they don't make the same mistakes that we did. And on top of that, as we're teaching this, as we're bringing more people in, as we're teaching more people, we're going to learn from all the people that we're teaching, and they're going to learn lessons from them. And that is a really important and valuable way to learn. And one way you can do that is through what's called the cohort model. And with the cohort model is where you're going through some class, you're going through some teaching, and you're doing it with a group of people, kind of like a boot camp you would do with a group of people or something like that. So that's actually something that we're launching this week. We're going to be launching a cohort where people can learn to cook to impress a date. We may end up changing the name just a little bit, but that's essentially the gist of it. And the way that's going to work is over the next few weeks, once a week, we'll meet up live online so people can learn what we're going to give our valuable teaching to them not in person, online live, where they can join and they can ask questions, they can interact, they can see and talk to, well, maybe not see, but they'll be able to interact with other students who are going through it at the same time. And this will also leverage our base course material from Kickstart Your Kitchen. But in addition to that, it'll have extra material as well that we're doing just for this cohort. And by teaching it in this cohort way, you get to not only learn from us, but you get to learn from all of the other people who are learning this stuff at the same time. Maybe they're going to be, making some mistakes themselves, and bringing their life experiences, their knowledge, and so we can all learn better together. So just wanted to make sure to talk about that, because that will be coming up shortly. So the last question for you, Danielle, probably, we'll see, is, this helpful for life thing. So you've kind of had involvement with this on and off, and now it's a part of your life. What got you involved with Helpful for Life, and why are you doing it?
Because my husband got me involved in it. So yeah, I guess the first thing that got me involved was the idea for an online summit of like figure out your life, which I forget what all there were going to be
Kickstart
like
Your
12,
Life.
yeah, Kickstart Your Life. And then we started outlining what that course would look like with like all the 8 to 12 different life categories that there were going to be deeper dives into. And we're like, oh, maybe we should just focus on one of those areas first. And what's something that every single person has to do every single day, multiple times a day, was feed themselves. So that's why we started with creating Kickstart Your Kitchen as our first course that was going to be like the food, the personal like home cooking branch of the figure out your life. So yeah, created that course, and then now that the video, the course video and the sales page and all of that is created, it's like figuring out more of the marketing pieces of it. So like, I guess it's reminding me of my Ozobot days and the startup and getting to just try out a bunch of different jobs and figure out like, okay, what is our business model and how are we going to do all this? So
yeah, so to recap some of the things that you've done for Helpful for Life, right? So you helped some with the script research and the writing of the material before we created the Kickstart Your Kitchen course.
Recipe creation,
help with
my
recipe
favorite
creation,
part.
help with drink testing,
Oh,
lots of drink
obviously.
testing. And then you did plenty of helping, with the filming.
Production assistant.
Yeah, production
which
assistant.
I also was at Ozobot, got to help with one of their commercials and be like assistant to the director for the day instead of the CEO.
Nice. So that's funny. You had a little bit of experience before coming on set. And now we're getting into the stage where it actually lines up a little nicer with your expertise, which is getting
Content
into
marketing.
the content marketing, and the writing and the emails and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a fun new chapter. And
Yes.
as we're getting in front of more people, in front of more eyeballs, and figuring out more ways to help you guys out there. So we're really looking forward to the next step, the next challenge. Speaking of challenges, Danielle, as I give a quick recap today, if there's any challenge that pops in mind, let us know.
Okay.
So thank you guys so much for joining us today on January 17th, 2022, episode 73. We talked a lot a bit with Danielle here, and we went through a little bit of her career up to now, and by a little bit, I mean all of it. And we gave a little bit of background on how she started out in psychology with her degree, and then she thought she was going to do counseling, but after she did some crisis helpline volunteering and some internal soul searching and realizing that she couldn't get just a master's at A&M where she was going to college, she decided she was going to shift into the HR world. So she got a business minor with a quote-unquote focus in HR, as she called
Concentration.
it. The concentration, there you go. And then she got involved with an extracurricular group, which was SHRM, Society of Human Resources Management. She got involved with that at school, started to look into that a little bit more. And then when she went and got into the quote-unquote real world and got her first job, she did technical recruiting for an IT staffing firm. Realized that maybe wasn't exactly what she was looking for, especially the way that they were running their company and very micromanagey and way too much structure for Danielle. She felt more like a cog in the machine than a real human, which is a good thing to try and avoid probably in general. Anything that's dehumanizing people. But then you shifted, you tried another recruiting job to make sure that wasn't exactly what you wanted to do. And then it wasn't. Spoiler alert. And then you jumped over to being an executive assistant, which turned at a startup. Started out with 20 people. By the time you're gone, somewhere between 50 and 70 people. And they had, well, maybe not quite
40
that
to
many.
50, I thought.
40 to 50. And you got to see what that was like as their sales grew. They were working on getting new funding. Their team was growing. You created new processes. You got a little bit of the startup taste. You got a little bit of the business taste. You got a lot of exposure to creating an HR world at a company. So you went from a HR focus of your business minor to basically being a full-time HR in many ways. And then you developed your writing a little bit further. You started a handful of different blogs as you're trying to figure out what exactly you wanted to write about. And now you've learned a little bit more about the mystical world, and that's been one of your areas of interest. So you worked with some other women to create themysticcollective.com, which is also just known as the Mystic Collective, in McKinney, Texas, with some local business owners, women business owners. And now you're still helping Helpful for Life chug along, and you're helping us as we get into our next chapter of marketing and growth. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much how we got to where we are today. And now you're writing also. You've figured out at least what your kind of first focus wants to be on, in addition to the kind of the lifestyle and the cooking and the things that you're doing in your life, your journaling, things like that. You're also working on this novel, which has its own subject and interest and theme to it, which we'll look forward to learning more about. So, as we sit here and recap your life for you, is there anything that I missed?
Well, I was thinking, like you said at the beginning, my whole career. And no, we didn't, because I started with pet sitting and babysitting before I was even like 10 years old. So
you're right.
I was a child entrepreneur. Basically.
You were. And we also we didn't touch on your internship with the health technology
Striker
company, or health recruiting. What was that?
I was an HR
assistant.
assistant, so I did recruiting, I did onboarding, I did.
Right, so we forgot that HR internship was another great way to get some experience and decide what the things you wanted to do. Well, here we are with Danielle version 20,000. Version 2022. How does it feel to be a Danielle in today's day and age?
Feels great.
Thank you. You heard that
I
here
recommend
first.
it.
Well, any challenges that came up for you as we were recapping your life, or would you like me to come up with a challenge for Danielle episode?
Go for it.
All right. Well, my challenge is, which I'm going to create with your help. Danielle, one thing we didn't talk about that much today was cheese. One of your earlier blog creations was called Danielle Con Queso. And so now that's a bit of a nickname for you. So if we were to give our listeners at home one challenge to do with cheese, what would it be?
Well, it is Monday. And so on Mondays, I like to make box mac and cheese. So maybe you could make some box mac and cheese, but add a little something to upgrade it. So I like to add ground mustard and some sort of like real cheese. Because like you gotta get the Annie's box mac and cheese is the best one. The shells and cheese, either the yellow cheddar or the white cheddar, doesn't matter. But then add some ground mustard, and you gotta add the butter. It's an option on the box, and you always take that option. And then add some so I get like Land O'Lakes white American cheese sliced from the Walmart deli. So I just add like 1 or 2 slices of there and with the white cheddar, and then it just makes it a little creamier with like the milk and the powder that comes in the box.
Nice.
So there you go. Make some mac and cheese for Monday.
Making mac and cheese for money. That is your challenge.
Monday. You said for money.
For
make mac and cheese for money.
Make some mac and cheese on Monday. This is maybe the tastiest challenge that we've had yet.
Yeah.
So you can go get some box mac and cheese for like $1, maybe a couple dollars. And then if you wanted to upgrade it the way Danielle's saying, you could get some ground mustard powder in the spice aisle. And I don't know, just add a couple shakes.
Or if you just have some mustard in your fridge.
Yeah, like some literally some yellow mustard or Dijon mustard. You just squeeze it in.
Just like less than a tablespoon.
Yeah, in case you're not aware, very often in mac and cheese, ground mustard or some sort of mustard is something to give a little bit of that tang.
Yeah,
it's enough to like change the taste, but not so much where it like tastes like mustard. For example, we have a friend who absolutely despises mustard, just hates it altogether, but he probably would still like this mac and cheese, wouldn't he?
Probably.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, it has been a wonderful Monday. Thank you so much for joining us, Danielle. And thank you for providing our cheesiest challenge to date. But with that, we will say ta-ta for now.
TTFN.
And TTFN. Have a great day.